Good day, Mr. Tony Stark and esteemed members of the board. My name is Faris Adnan Hafi bin Hanif, and we are a cybersecurity professional contracted to perform a risk assessment and develop a corresponding implementation plan for XYZ Semiconductor Limited. Today, we will present our findings regarding the critical systems identified, as well as the proposed countermeasures to mitigate these risks. We will be presenting based on the assets that we identified. So I will be passing to my colleague, Mr. Khairil Hafiz, for the asset number 1.
All right. For the asset number 1, it's about supervisories, control, and data acquisition. So a little bit introduction for asset 1 first. Why SCADA is vital for the company, because these systems are crucial for core manufacturing operations, which is they control and monitor the company's essential manufacturing processes, and safety and efficiency, which is they ensure the operation runs safely and efficiently. Third, revenue generation, which is they are critical for the company's ability to generate income. And last, legal compliance, which is they maintain records and required by law for the automotive industry, which are regularly inspected by government agency. Failure to manage these records properly could result in fines and legal penalties. Now we move on to risk assessment for the asset 1. And there are several vulnerabilities for this asset, which is one is outdated software and hardware, which is SCADA system might be running on legacy platforms that are not regularly updated or patched. Second is network exposure. With network exposure, integration with the internet increases the risk of unauthorized access from the internet. And last, lack of physical security. Physical access to SCADA system could be insufficiently protected. Now we move on to the threats for this asset. One of the threats is cyber attacks, including malware, ransomware, and targeted attacks by state or non-state actors. And second is internal threats, unauthorized action by employees or contractors. And last is physical tampering by access by unauthorized personnel to SCADA hardware. And there are risk severity, which is one is impact and second is likelihood. Impact will be high because compromise can lead to operational disruptions, safety hazards, legal non-compliance, and financial losses. And for the likelihood will be moderate to high, given the integration with the internet and potential exposure to the internet. And there's also a risk treatments for these assets, which is network segmentation. Isolate the SCADA system from the broader network and limit the external connections. Second is regular patching and updates. Implement a robust update and patch management process. Third is enhance the security controls. We'll deploy a strong authentication, access control, and encryption. And lastly is physical security measures. Secure a physical access to SCADA systems. Now we move on the countermeasures for this asset. The first is policies, and one of the policies is network segmentation policies. These define the clear guidelines for network segmentation, isolating SCADA system from the rest of the corporate network to reduce exposure to cyber threats. Second is patch management policy. Establish a policy mandating regular updates and patching for SCADA system, including vendor provided updates. Third is physical security policy. Implement a policy to restrict and monitor physical access to SCADA hardware and infrastructure. There are also procedures, and the procedures is SCADA system maintenance procedures. This develop the procedure for regular maintenance, patching, and updates of SCADA systems. And this should include testing patches in a safe environment before deployment. And last is an incident response procedure for SCADA. Create a detailed stats for identifying, reporting, and responding to incidents affecting the SCADA systems, ensuring the rapid containment and recovery. All right, now we move on. The countermeasures for controls and people. First, for the controls is network firewalls and segmentation. Implement firewalls and VLANs to segregate the SCADA network from other networks and control the traffic between them. And second is endpoint protection. Deploy an endpoint security solutions on SCADA device to detect and prevent malware and unauthorized access. The last is access control. Use a strong authentication methods and role-based access controls for SCADA system users and administrators. And for the people is specialized training. Provide a SCADA-specific cybersecurity training for engineers and operators to ensure they understand the unique risks and protective measures required. And lastly is security awareness. Regularly update SCADA system users on potential threats and best practices for maintaining security. And that's all for the countermeasures and risk assessment for Asset 1. Now I pass on to my friend for the assessment.
Okay, thank you, Khalid. My name is Muhammad Iqbal bin Muhammad Khairi, and I am presenting about Asset 2, which is critical data on file server must maintain integrity for operational and audit purposes. Okay, the first one, we look at the vulnerabilities. The first one is data breaches, where sensitive data stored on file server can be accessed by unauthorized personnel if proper access control are not in place. Second one is data integrity. Data could be altered, corrupted, or deleted either accidentally or maliciously. That is lack of encryption. Data at rest or in transit might not be encrypted, making it vulnerable to interception and unauthorized access. That is unpatched system. File servers and associated software may have unpatched vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Next one is weak password. Weak or reused password for accessing file servers can lead to unauthorized access. Lastly is inadequate backup, which is insufficient backup. Processes can result in permanent data loss in case of a ransomware attack or hardware failure. Then we look at to the threat. The first one is cyber attacks. Hackers targeting sensitive data through phishing, malware, or directing attacks on network. Second one is insider threat. Employees with malicious intent or those who inadvertently compromise data security. And then physical threat, physical damage to server due to disaster such as fire and flood or unauthorized physical access. Regulatory non-compliance, which is failure to protect data, could lead to fines and legal action from regulatory bodies. Lastly is data corruption, software bugs, hardware failure, or malicious activity leading to data corruption. Now we look at to risk severity, which is data breach risk, which is high. Exposure of sensitive data can lead to significant financial loss, reputational damage, and legal consequences. Next is data integrity risk, which is high. Alteration or corruption of critical data can disrupt business operation and lead to incorrect decision making. Next one is regulatory non-compliant risk, which is high also, which is non-compliant with data protection regulation can result in severe penalties. And then is insider threat risk, medium to high. Depending on the level of access and intent of the insider, the impact can vary significantly. Lastly is physical threat risk, which is medium, depending on the physical security measure. In place, the likelihood and impact of physical threat can be mitigated. And then lastly for risk assessment, which is risk treatment. The first one is access control. It implements strong access control using role-based access control, RBAC, multi-factor authentication, MFA, and regular audits of access permission. Second one is data encryption. It encrypts data at rest and in transit to protect against unauthorized access. Third one is patch management. Regularly update and patch all software and system to mitigate vulnerabilities. And then password policies, enforce strong password policies, including complexity requirement, regular changes, and prohibiting reuse. And then backup solution, implement robust backup solution with regular backups and secure off-site storage to ensure data recovery in case of loss. And then employee training, regularly train employees on cybersecurity best practice, recognizing phishing attempt and proper data handling procedure. Lastly, which is physical security, enhance physical security measures such as surveillance, cameras, access control, and security server room. And then we look at to the countermeasure. First one, which is policies, data protection policies. Define and enforce policy for data classification, handling, storage, and disposal. Access control policy. Establish policies for granting, modifying, and revoking access to file servers and sensitive data. And then encryption policy. Mandate encryption for data at rest and in transit, specifically the encryption standard and key management procedure. Patch management policy, which is develop a policy for regular system update and patch management. Secondly, which is procedure. Incident response procedure, develop a comprehensive incident response plan to address data breaches and security incidents swiftly. And then backup and recovery procedure, implement detailed procedure for regular data backup and recovery testing. And then audit and monitoring procedure, which is established procedure for regular auditing and monitoring of asset log and system activities. Lastly, the first one, which is technical control, where we implement firewall, intrusion detection, prevention system, IDS, IPS, and antivirus software to protect the network and file server. Secondly, we use access control, use RBSE, MFA, and strong password policies to control access to sensitive data. And then physical control, secure server room with access control system, surveillance cameras, and environmental control. And lastly, encryption control, use industry standard encryption protocol for data at rest and in transit. And lastly, for countermeasure, which is people, the first one is training and awareness, conduct a regular cybersecurity training and awareness program for our employees. And then security roles, define clear security roles and responsibilities within the organization. And then employee vetting, implement through vetting process for employees, especially for those with access to sensitive data. And lastly, incident response team, which is establish a dedicated incident response team trained to handle security incident effectively. And now I pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iqbal. Let's move on with the risk assessment for asset number 3, which is the financial, procurement, and maintenance of production servers. These systems are crucial to the effective operation of your core business areas. Any compromise in their availability or integrity could severely impact the company's ability to operate efficiently. We identified several vulnerabilities associated with these systems. The first one is legacy systems and outdated software. Many systems are running outdated versions that lack the latest security updates. Next is the unpatched systems. These are instances of crucial software not being updated with the latest security patches. Weak authentication process. Current authentication mechanisms are not robust enough to prevent unauthorized access. Insufficient network segmentation. It is the lack of proper segmentation allows threats to spread more easily across the network. Next, lack of comprehensive encryption. Data at rest and in transit is not adequately encrypted. Inadequate backup, recovery, and recovery strategies. Existing strategies are not comprehensive enough to ensure quick recovery in case of data loss. Next is the insider threats. Employees may intentionally or unintentionally compromise security. Unexpected hardware failures is also the failures that could disrupt operations without warning. And lastly is the natural disasters. Events such as floods or earthquakes could physically damage your servers. These vulnerabilities expose us to various threats, including malware, which is the potentially crippling malicious software attacks, unauthorized access, which is individuals gaining access to critical systems, network breaches, which is intrusions that compromise network security, data leakage, unauthorized dissemination of sensitive data loss, which is accidental or malicious deletion of critical data, cyber attacks, this is a broad spectrum of attacks, including ransomware, insider attacks, which is malicious attack actions by employees, hardware failures, which are unexpected breakdowns disrupting operations. Okay, next, the risk severity. We have evaluated the risk severity based on the likelihood of occurrence and the potential impact. The most severe risks are unpatched system, cyber attacks, weak authentication process, and lack of comprehension encryption. The moderate risk is the outdated software, insufficient network segmentation, inadequate backup and recovery strategies, and insider threats. The low risks are unexpected hardware failures and natural disasters. To address this risk, we propose these treatments. Automated patch management, ensuring all systems are regularly updated, advanced threat detection, deploying tools to identify and respond to threats quickly, multi-factor authentication, which is enhancing access control measures, comprehensive encryption, encrypting sensitive data both at rest and in transit, network segmentation, implementing to isolate critical systems, robust backup and recovery, which is developing comprehensive strategies to ensure quick recovery from data loss, employee training, where you should educate the staff on recognizing and preventing security threats, redundant hardware, which is using fault-tolerant systems to minimize the impact of hardware failures, and disaster recovery planning, so that you can establish plans to quickly restore operations after a natural disaster. Now let's move on to the implementation plan. Our countermeasures are designed to address the identified risk through specific policies, procedures, controls, and personal training. First, we need to establish strong policies. Patch management policy, which mandates regular patching and updates for all systems. And the encryption policy, which requires encryption of sensitive data at rest and in transit. And lastly, access control policy, which defines robust authentication requirements. Defines robust authentication requirements, including multi-factor authentication. Next, we implement detailed procedures. The first one is patch management procedure, which outlines steps for timely deployment of patches. Next is backup and recovery procedure, which is details regular backups, schedules, and testing of recovery processes. And lastly, incident response procedure, which defines the steps to respond to detect threats promptly. We will also put in place the following controls. Multi-factor authentication. This enforces additional layers of security for access. Next is network segmentation, which limits the spread of potential breaches by isolating critical systems. And lastly, advanced threat detection tools. You should utilize technology to quickly identify and mitigate threats. Finally, we need to focus on our personnel, which is your employees. First one is training and awareness programs. Regularly educate employees on security best practices and threat recognition. Next is dedicated security team. Ensure you have a team in monitoring and responding to security incidents. And lastly, regular audits. Conduct frequent security audits to ensure compliance with policies and identify potential gaps. In conclusion, for asset number 3, our comprehensive risk assessment has identified significant vulnerabilities and threats to the financial, procurement, and maintenance of production servers. By implementing these proposed countermeasures, we can mitigate this risk and ensure the continuity and integrity of your operations. And I will pass it to Mr. Aiman for asset number 4. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aiman. I will be presenting for asset number 4, which is Microsoft Office 365, which is it's essential for communication, but it's also possess data privacy concern among the user in your company. So as we all know, Microsoft Office contain of Microsoft Teams, Outlook, and any other team that your employees usually use. So let's move on to the risk assessment that I have made for this part for asset number 4, which is we will talk about vulnerabilities, threats, and risk severity, and also risk treatment. So for vulnerabilities, there are 5 different vulnerabilities that I have done assessing for your for this asset, which is the first one is phishing attacks, data breaches, insufficient access control, unpatched software, and weak password. So for the first one, phishing attacks, your employees may fall victim to phishing email designed to trick them into revealing sensitive information such as login credential. And this is very common in the current modern world of cybersecurity, which is the impact is your stolen credential can lead to unauthorized access to sensitive company information and systems. And the next one is data breaches. Data breaches is unauthorized access to sensitive information stored on the Office 365 platform due to vulnerabilities or compromised accounts. And the impact to your company is exposure of confidential data can damage the company reputation and result in legal consequences. And the next one is insufficient access controls. So access control, if you have a poorly managed user permission and lack of proper access control measure can allow unauthorized individuals to access sensitive data. And the impact to your company is unauthorized access can lead to data leaks and misuse of company information. And the next one is unpatched software. So delays in applying software updates and patches can leave the Office 365 platform vulnerable to non-exploits and attacks. As we all know, some employees may delay the updates of the software or just ignore the update. So it may lead to the impact, which is exploitation of unpatched vulnerabilities can compromise system integrity and data security. And then the last one is the weak passwords. So use of weak or reused password by employees increases the risk of unauthorized access, unauthorized access through password guessing or credential stuffing attacks. So the impact to your company is going to be compromised account can lead to data breaches and unauthorized action within the Office 365 environment. And then the next one, we're talking about the threats to your company about 365, Microsoft 365 use. There are 5 different threats that I have analyzed for this part, which is the first one is external hackers, insider threats, malware, data exfiltration, and DDoS, which is denial of services attacks. So the first one is external hackers. So external hackers usually attempt to gain unauthorized access to sensitive communication and data, and cyber criminals attempting to gain unauthorized access to the Office 365 platform to steal sensitive data or disrupt operations of your company. So one of the methods of them is phishing, exploiting software vulnerabilities, and brute force attacks. And then the second one is insider threats. As we all know, malicious or negligent actions by employees that compromise data integrity, employees or contractor who intentionally or unintentionally compromise data integrity and security. And one of the methods is misuse of access privilege, accidental data leaks, and malicious actions. And then the next one, we move to the malware. This is one of the very common attacks that threats that in the current modern world receive in the information technology world. So malicious software that can be delivered via email attachment or links, which compromise system and data. So usually they use email-based malware attacks, ransomware, or spyware to compromise your data and any other important file in your computer or server or anything like that. So the next one is data exfiltration. Unauthorized transfer of sensitive data outside the organization by malicious insider or external attackers. So the method of data exfiltration is also phishing, malware, exploiting weak access control. And then the last one is denial of service attacks, overloading the Office 365 services to disrupt communication and operation. And the method is flooding the network with traffic, exploiting service vulnerability. So this is one of the very common method that they use to do the denial of service in your company or 365. And then we move to the risk severity and risk treatments. So as you can see right now, risk severity has a high, moderate, and low. So for the high, we have phishing attacks and data breaches. And then for the moderate, we have insufficient access control and weak passwords. And for the low, we got the unpatched software and DDoS attacks. So for the risk severity, for the high part, as you all know, phishing attack is the impact is going to be high, and a stolen credential as can lead to significant data breaches. So we can lose data, a very important data, if we got phishing attacks. And the next one is data breaches. Is also high due to the severe consequences on data privacy and company reputation. And for the moderate part is insufficient access control. Insufficient access control, moderate likelihood, but significant impact if unauthorized access occurs. But if unauthorized access occurs, it's going to be too high. And the next one is a weak password. Depend on the critically of access data, with impact varying based on the critically of access data. And the last one is the low part, which is unpatched software and DOS attack, denial of services attack, which is for unpatched software, lower likelihood if updates are managed properly, but potentially for high impact if exploited. So if your employee forgot to update the software, so it's going to be very, very dangerous if the vulnerabilities are exploited by the unpatched software. And the last one is DDoS attacks, denial of services. Lower likelihood with appropriate networks defenses, but can severely impact communication. It's also, the impact is also can be moderate, sometimes low, or moderate to high, depending on the disruption level of the attack. So the last one is risk treatments. As we can see right now, there are several risk treatment that I have done for this asset for your company. And the first one is implement multi-factor authentication, MFA. This is very common. And the second one, regular phishing awareness training, access control policies, regular software updates, strong password policies, data encryption, incident response plan, and monitoring and logging. So for the MFA, for the first one, MFA, which is a multi-factor authentication, it adds an extra layer of security beyond just password. So this is very common to the first layer of the security of your company to do it. And the next one is regular phishing awareness training. So this is to educate employees on how to recognize and avoid phishing attempts. This is going to be one of the, usually the company do some classes or online classes to send their employees and to educate them about the phishing attempts. And then the last one is the third one is access control policies. This is to enforce strict access control measures and regular audits of permission. The next one is regular software updates. This is to ensure Office 365 and related software are kept up to date with the latest security patches. The next one is strong password policies. Strong password policies is to enforce the use of strong, unique password and regular password changes. And then the next one is data encryption. Data encryption is encryption for sensitive data both in transit and at rest. Incident response plans is also a very common very common way to develop and regularly update an incident response plan, specifically for email and communication breaches. And then the last one is monitoring and logging. This is implement comprehensive monitoring and logging of all Office 365 activities to detect and respond to suspicious actions quickly. And let's look at the first one, which is multi-factor authentication. This is to evaluate one of the common step is to evaluate and select MFA solution, configure MFA setting in Office 365, or roll out multi-factor authentication to all users and provide training and support to the employees. Same goes to the regular phishing awareness training. One of the steps is develop and update training materials, schedule a conduct training session, perform regular phishing simulation, and review and improve training based on simulation results. One of the steps of access control policies is develop access control policies itself. That's the key point of the access control policies. And the second one is communicate policies to employees. And the third one, implement technical control, conduct regular access reviews and audits, and regular software updates is usually develop a regular update procedure, schedule and apply updates, verify update completion, and monitor for any issues post updates. And then for the strong password policies, develop usually the employees or any other person in the company, they must develop a strong password policy, communicate policy to employees, implement technical controls to enforce the policy, and monitor compliance and address violations. For data encryption, one of the steps is evaluate encryption solutions, implement encryption protocols, educate employees on encryption practices, regularly review and update encryption methods. So for incident response plan, one of the steps is develop an incident response plan, train employees on response procedures, conduct regular incident response drills, review and update the plan based on drill outcomes. And the last one is for monitoring and logging, which is one of the steps is evaluate monitoring and logging solution, deploy and configure chosen solution, set up alerts for suspicious activity, regularly review logs and respond to incidents. So that is all for the risk assessment. We are going to move on to the countermeasures of the 365, which is we're going to talk about the policies and procedures, controls, and also the people in the company itself. So for the first one, for the policies, as I said before, we're going to do access control policies, data protection policy, password policy, and incident response policy. So usually for access control policy is to define and enforce strict access control measures, and it is also to limit access to sensitive information based on the principles of least privilege. And data protection policy is to mandate the use of encryption for data both in transit and at rest within the Office 365 suite. So for the password policy, implement and enforce a strong password policy requiring the use of complete unique password that are changed regularly. And incident response policy is to develop a comprehensive incident response policy, specifically addressing email and communication breaches. And for the procedure, there are 4 different procedures that should your company implement, which is the first one is regular security training, phishing simulation, software update procedure, and access review. So for the security training, regular security training is to conduct regular training session to educate employees about phishing attacks, safe emails practices, and other cybersecurity threats. And then for the phishing simulation, perform regular phishing simulation to test and improve employee awareness and respond to phishing attempts. And software update procedure is also needed to establish a procedure to ensure that all Office 365 applications are regularly updated with the latest security patches. And the last one is access review. Regularly review and audit user permission to ensure appropriate access controls are in place. So we move on to the next countermeasure, which is controls and people. So for the controls, there are multi-factor authentication, MFA, email filtering and monitoring, data loss prevention, and activity monitoring. So for the MFA, we used to implement MFA across all Office 365 account to add an extra layer of security. So for the email filtering and monitoring, we deploy advanced email filtering and monitoring solution to detect and block phishing attempts and malicious attachment. And for the data loss prevention, which is DLP, utilize DLP tools to monitor, detect, and prevent unauthorized data exfiltration. And the last one is activity monitoring. So this is to implement comprehensive logging and monitoring of all Office 365 activities to detect and respond to suspicious behavior promptly. Either they are from your employees or among the staff and the people inside your company. And the next one is people. So there are 4 different countermeasures that I've analyzed, which is the security awareness training, designated security team, incident response team, and regular communication. For the security awareness training, we're going to provide ongoing cybersecurity awareness training for all employees to keep them informed about the latest threats and safe practices. Designated security team is to establish a dedicated security team responsible for monitoring and responding to security incident within the Office 365 environment. And for the incident response team, we need to form an incident response team with clear roles and responsibility for handling email and communication related security breaches. And the last one is regular communication. Maintain regular communication between IT security staff and other employees to ensure everyone is aware of current security policies and procedures. So this is all that we as a team of the cybersecurity professional that have analyzed the risk assessment and the countermeasure for your assets, which is the first one, asset 1, 2, 3 that I've my friends that have done. So I think that is all from us, and I hope to you, sir, as the CIO of the company, which is you are a very important person to inform this and to react of this result that that me and my friend that have done. So thank you.